Howdy, y'all. There's been talk recently of renewed restrictions linked to a certain unspecified virus of unknown origin. YouTube algorithms have been killing me lately, so I'm going to play it a little extra safe. While many hours could be spent on every aspect of this subject, how we should react to things from our past experience, whatever the case might be, I wanted to talk about what kind of things the Founding Fathers would say, what principles that they eschewed, that they promoted, that they believed in would apply today. Real quick, don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons and let me know what you think of the video down in the comments below. Let's start with a classic. They who can give up essential liberty to obtain a little temporary safety deserve neither liberty nor safety. That's Benjamin Franklin. And here's another one from Thomas Jefferson. Trade liberty for money or safety and you'll end up with neither. Liberty, like a grain of salt, easily dissolves. And I also want to throw in the rest of that quote that will be relevant more later. The power of questioning, not simply believing, has no friends, yet liberty depends on it. So especially thinking about that liberty, not trading it for money or safety, you'll end up with neither, that sort of thing. We see a couple of principles, right? We need to understand that safety at the expense of freedom, even a temporary expense of freedom, is a freedom killer. It will never be just temporary. It will fundamentally undermine our long-term freedom and that of our children and our grandchildren and so on. What has been the cry of the last few years dealing with all these problems? We need safety. Well, it's just to keep us safe. You know, we need to make sure we stay safe from this disease. Well, yeah, they're doing all this stuff, but it's just to keep us safe. They're just doing it for our benefit and so on and so forth. You can probably think of a million other reasons and phrases that were given. Yet, that's the totally incorrect attitude, at least if we actually want to be free. You see, if we're to be free, we have to be willing to freely accept risk and responsibility for ourselves. If we don't want to be free, if we make the choice, because we don't have to choose to be free, but if we make the choice, I don't want to be free, I want to be safe. The ironic part about that is we can't, because life is risky no matter what. We can sometimes mitigate risk a little bit, but we can never eliminate risk. So we can either choose to be free and to understand the risk and the responsibility that comes with that, or we can choose safety, but we have to realize, as the Founding Fathers so brilliantly pointed out, we will receive neither. We won't be free and we won't be safe. The government, no matter, or any other organization or group of people or whatever, can promise everything that you want, but they can never provide safety. It's impossible. Life is inherently risky. You can make that choice, but don't expect to get what you want out of it. And let's understand the conversation was similar back then, right? We, the crown and the parliament, right? The king and the British government are protecting the colonist. Militarily, economically, they provided important things, and they did provide some degree of security and safety. So because of that, we have the right to tyrannize you, to tax you illegally, etc., to provide for that safety. That was basically one of the justifications used. Oh, and if you don't agree, we'll make you unsafe as a punishment, right? Yes, this is for your safety, but if you disagree, we will make you unsafe, like through the quartering of soldiers, right? Putting basically people who were criminals and lowlifes into your house with your wife and your daughters and forcing you to, that's making you unsafe, or the illegal arrest and all those different things. That was the same idea back then as we dealt with recently, and maybe we're going to deal with again as the conversation has been. Some other quotes. Benjamin Franklin also said, "It is the responsibility of every citizen, to question authority. It is the responsibility of every citizen to question authority." Now that in and of itself can be controversial today, unfortunately. Thomas Jefferson said, "Experience hath shewn," which is just an old way of saying shown, "that even under the best forms of government, those entrusted with power have, in time and by slow operations, perverted it into tyranny." Also very applicable. We'll talk about it in a second. Patrick Henry, "Guard with jealous attention the public liberty. Suspect everyone who approaches that jewel. Unfortunately, nothing will preserve it but downright force. Whenever you give up that force, you are inevitably ruined." And a short one from James Madison, "We are right to take alarm at the first experiment upon our liberties." The concept that was pushed so hard with all of the stuff from the last few years, and again, maybe coming into the play again, all the concept that we should not and should never question authority, the government, the science, quote unquote, etc. And the accusations and the censoring of those people that did is so asinine and so tyrannical that every American should be outraged to the last degree that it happened. Yet, I ask you, how many of us just sat back and let it happen? It's in the past now. The key is we cannot let it happen again. We must not let it happen again. We have the responsibility to question authority. We have to realize the danger that comes in any government, no matter how great or bad it is. Patrick Henry emphasized the need to jealously, as he put it, guard liberty and to view anyone that approaches it with suspicion. Anyone, and I mean anyone who would propose or attempt a limiting of our liberties of any kind for any reason should immediately be met with suspicion and resistance. Thomas Jefferson, and others as well, but we looked specifically at a quote from Thomas Jefferson, pointed out the importance of realizing that the tyranny that can come in through a government more often than not happens very slowly. We did not go from the government response to the late disease in the last few years directly from the patriotism and the fighting of the American Revolution. There have been many, many small and increasingly serious tyrannies over the years, over the decades, over the centuries that we have allowed to creep in little by little, infraction upon an infraction, infringement upon infringement. And it's small, so we say it's okay. We justify it in our minds. And that's how we've gotten to where we are today. Those tyrannies have to be stopped at any cost. Our way of life already teeters on the brink of destruction. We have to realize how serious things have gotten and understand that we have to be willing to do something to avoid that. So, what do we do? And we could spend hours talking about what we could do, specifics and examples and ideas, and that would be wonderful for another episode. But I wanted to look at the words of Thomas Jefferson once again. And I would also mention that quote we talked about earlier, the power of questioning, not simply believing, has no friends, yet liberty depends on it. We need to question, but also, here's another thing he said. When once a republic is corrupted, there is no possibility of remedying any of the growing evils, but by removing the corruption and restoring its lost principles. Every other correction is either useless or a new evil. A new tax code or a new law that supposedly limits some government agency or a new committee hearing is not a solution to the problems that we have today. Only by removing the corruption and getting back to the principles that our country was founded on, that we as the American people used to believe, is there any hope for a remedying of the situation that we're in. Looking for candidates, this is one specific example, look for candidates who don't just want to limit government, but actually want to eliminate the fetid corruption that is so common in government today. For instance, disbanding these unnecessary and tyrannical government agencies that are all too common. And not just the people that say that's what they want to do, but actually have a hope of pulling it off. Look at where that money is coming from. Are they funded by the Republicans? Because let's be real. If they're funded by the Republicans, at the end of the day, they can say and they can believe whatever they want, but they're always going to pull that money leash, and they're not going to be able to accomplish what they maybe very personally, deeply believe, because they can't afford to run a campaign without it. I hope that you all found this informative and helpful. And don't forget about our social media that's linked in the description, our merch store. And if you'd like to support me in a more personal way, my Patreon is also linked in the description below. And remember, friends, as long as you and I are doing what's right, we make a real difference in this old world. And Ryan Dalton of the Kentuckian, signing off.